Got an awesome movie to review for you guys on this here Monday. And I'm not going to be surprised if it's a really long review and if there's a lot of cuts here and there. Well, not here and there, like every sentence pretty much. And I hate when videos do that, but I really feel like I'm going to have to do it on this one because I can't just go on for like 5 minutes continuously talking because I have to stop and think because there's just so much to say about this movie and so many details I need to include in order for it to make sense. Now the movie I'm going to be doing, I'm sure probably all of you have heard of it, especially if you're into movies, The Butterfly Effect. So like I said, I'm sure all of you have heard of this. It stars Ashton Kutcher and Amy Smart, I guess, but really mainly Ashton Kutcher. And this movie came out in 2004, I think. I could be wrong. The Blu-ray came out on 2008, I think. I don't know. I don't really care because there's so many more important details I need to focus on. Now, the fact that it's on Blu-ray, I picked it up just on Boxing Day, actually. Now, Boxing Day is pretty much the equivalent of Black Friday for you Americans out there, or for people who don't know what it is, just when everything goes on sale. Now, Boxing Day actually lasts usually a couple of weeks anyways, and things stay on sale. But anyways, I got this for $5, so I was like, shit, it's a good movie, and it's a Blu-ray. So when I see a Blu-ray for like $5, I'm like, shit, I gotta get it. Even if it's a crappy movie, I still gotta get it. But this is not a crappy movie. Now, it runs about 2 hours long, however, Ashton Kutcher isn't in it until like half an hour in it throughout the movie. So I'll get into the plot, because I know this is going to be a long one, so I won't really bother getting into a whole lot. I'll talk about the fact that it's on Blu-ray after, if I remember. So Ashton Kutcher comes in about half an hour into the movie, because it starts out when he is 7, and then it cuts to when he is 13, and then it's another 7 years later, so I guess when he's 20. Now Ashton Kutcher doesn't look like a 20-year-old, unless he looks a year older than me, because I'm 19, and I don't think he looks only a year older than I do. So, anyways, he plays a college person, guy, college kid, whatever you want to call it. Starts out, it goes through a series of events throughout his life, and that's why it just cuts ahead. And it shows a bunch of different events in his life, and he blacks out. He has this problem in his brain that he just blacks out and doesn't know what happened, and we don't get to see what happens either. It just cuts forward. So these blackouts and the rest of the movie relate to restricted narration, where the audience, you, learn about the series of events as they happen at the same time as the character, Ashton Kutcher. So there's blackouts, and we don't get to know what happens, just kind of cuts forward. But we do get to learn later on in the movie what happens. So it cuts ahead, cuts ahead, cuts ahead. Cuts ahead, cuts ahead. Whatever. How many ever times it cuts ahead. So then we get to Ashton Kutcher in college. Now, he soon discovers, because he's been keeping journals throughout his entire life, when he starts reading them, that he can go back and relive experiences in his life. And he later discovers that he can use this somewhat to his advantage, depends on your viewpoint on that. He discovers that he can actually change what happens in the future. It's almost like Back to the Future, because if what he does in the past changes what happens in the future. So he does this for good, because he goes back to the traumatic events in his life, which we see, but don't really get to see. We just know that there's traumatic events. So he goes back to those and he changes things, but then that changes things in the future. Sometimes for better, but then they usually become worse. And he does this several times to try and make things better for himself and for his friends and his mother and everything in the future. Now it's really interesting, and I remember seeing this movie a couple times, and I knew it was good. But I rewatched it tonight just because I had it on Blu-ray and I wanted to refresh my memory on the movie, and I'm glad I did, because it is so much better than I remember. This is probably one of the best movies I've ever seen now, because it is honestly amazing. It really is. Now, I didn't really explain a whole lot. I guess there's just so much more going on in my mind, because there's so much more to know when you watch the movie, but that's essentially it. He has the journals, he can go back, change events in his life, he changes things for the worse a lot of the times. That's what happens, and then he has to eventually get things right. And he has like an epiphany at the end, I guess you could say, and he figures it all out. Now I didn't remember the ending. There's a lot. Actually, I was watching the Blu-ray, and there's no special features or anything, but because with a lot of other Blu-rays, I watched the director's cut, and they just throw scenes in there, and you don't remember them. I guess I just haven't seen this movie in a while, so I just don't remember a lot of the scenes. So I just kept on thinking that I don't remember this, I don't remember this, I don't remember this, but it's all in there. That's definitely how the movie goes, and it's so good. You definitely have to watch this movie. I can't really say much more about the plot, because I almost gave stuff away, really. Definitely check this out. If you can get it on Blu-ray, that's cool, too. There's not even like a main menu. It just starts, and it's like, your movie's about to start, blah, blah, blah. Push this button to bring up the settings. It's like, oh, okay. Maybe it's because I'm watching it on my PS3, but I don't think so, because my other movies are normal. Now, again, with it being on Blu-ray, the audio was weird. I think it's just movies that weren't originally on Blu-ray, because there'd be parts where he like starts reading and then things get shaky and there's like loud noises, like to make like for emphasis or whatever on the fact that he's like going back in time, but it's just so much louder than the talking that goes on in the movie, and it's really bad. I'm just gonna keep talking while I check my battery life, because my battery on my camera is dying. These flip cameras suck, especially for battery life if you got the battery pack, and they drain alkaline batteries. But anyways, it's awesome. There's so many people in this movie that you'll recognize, but I really don't, like, not huge people like Brad Pitt and George Clooney and stuff, but I mean just people that you recognize, like one kid who was on the Steve Harvey show, Amy Smart, of course. There's a kid from Cheaper by the Dozen in there. There's just a lot of kids that you recognize. And a couple things I didn't like about this movie, I almost forgot to say this. Ashton Kutcher is such a bitch in this movie. Not necessarily him, but his character. Like, even when he's younger, the 7-year-old version of him, great actor, especially for being a young kid like that. He does a really good job. The 13-year-old version, I don't know who this kid is. I've never seen him in anything else. Horrible actor. They could have found someone better. Just because he had the same hair as Ashton Kutcher, they really could have found someone better. And Ashton Kutcher himself, he always gets his ass kicked. He gets his ass kicked quite a few times in this movie. Yeah, he fights back, but man, he's such a bitch in this movie. And another thing that really pisses me off is Ashton Kutcher has 3 friends when he's growing up. One of them being Amy Smart, one of them being the kid from Cheaper by the Dozen, and the other one, some kid that I know I've seen him somewhere else, but I don't know, and I didn't really want to bother doing the research because I knew this review would be too long as it is. His name is Tommy, and Ashton Kutcher's character, let's say he's like 5'10". Okay, we'll say him when he's 13. His friend is at least 1.5 feet shorter than him, and he's just this little fidget. He's got to be 4 foot something, not even 5 feet tall, but he kicks the shit out of, like, they're at a movie theater and the kid freaks out because Tommy's this psycho who is a sadistic fuck, and he like kicks the shit out of some older guy, like some 20-year-old, which is complete bullshit because this kid's a little bitch and would probably get snapped in half in real life. Just because he's sadistic doesn't mean he has like super Hulk strength. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. That really bugs me. And when you watch this movie, you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. It's this little kid who just destroys everyone, who just kicks the shit out of everyone, and beats the shit out of Ashton Kutcher's 13-year-old self like 5 times. Like, you know, he's such a bitch in this movie. But aside from that, this movie's amazing. The plot is amazing. The writers, oh my god, they just threw spins on everything and managed to come up with every single mindfuck ever. It's not a confusing movie, though. You definitely understand. Things come together in the end, but you really are able to follow along. If you are sometimes slow with movies, honestly, this will definitely still be a movie you can follow along with, because there's really no... It's not confusing like a lot of mindfuck movies are. This one's really entertaining. You never really get lost. There's a lot of parts where you're like, oh, yeah, you get it. And there's very, very few funny parts. Ashton Kutcher is pretty well known, I guess, for being pretty funny, but I guess depending on your opinion, who you are, but what you think of him. But there's very, very few parts in this movie, of course, because it is a drama, but thankfully there's a couple parts. There's a part where I laughed out loud, and it was pretty funny. But I guess I'll wrap this movie up, this review up, because my camera's probably dead by now. I really didn't do that great of a job describing the plot of this movie. I didn't really get too into detail on the different characters, but I gave you the basic plot of it. Now, if you want to know more on the plot, I'm getting fingerprints all over this DVD case. Why don't I just put it down? If you want to know more about the plot, definitely just watch the trailer, watch or read different like synopsis, whatever. It's such a good movie, and it's just ridiculously creative. And you definitely need to watch this movie if you've never seen it. Please watch this. Now, there was a sequel to this. Not nearly as good. Did not do it justice. I seriously doubt it was the same writers, actually. There was 2 people who wrote and directed this movie. It was really good. The first one, I mean. The second one wasn't bad. Everyone says it's really, really awful, but it wasn't as bad as they say. It was mediocre. I would probably watch it again. I think I've seen it a couple times, actually. Probably as many times as this one. But it's just because it's like on the movie channel every now and then, and this one's not really. Blu-ray. The fact that it's on Blu-ray improves the quality, I guess. If you can find it cheap, alright, but don't pay like the full $30, whatever it is on normal price for it. If it's around the same price as DVD, get it, but if it's more expensive than DVD, just get the DVD. But definitely check this movie out. One of the most amazing movies ever, honestly. Like, yeah, okay, Avatar's got all these effects and stuff, but this story is so good and just unbelievably creative and, for the most part, unique. Change one thing, change everything. Definitely check this movie out. for sure, and I didn't really do this movie justice in this review, but please watch this movie. It's amazing. Let me know if you've seen this movie. Let me know what you think of it. See you guys next week.